Hello friends, welcome back. Welcome back to strategic management and now strategic management process. Managing the strategy. You see, since the beginning we are trying to build up a case in terms of strategically managing things. And now you can think in terms of that strategically managing our mission and management of strategy, management of the steps reaching towards that mission and subsequently the vision. Now we can always fill in that blanks with and replace things with other elements, and at the end of the day the success would be that we would be saying that strategically managing value webs rather than value chains. So that is where we have to reach, and management of strategy. So for management of strategy, strategic management process has to be understood. Let us see what comes our way in terms of strategic management process. It is a rational approach firms use to achieve strategic competitiveness. You see, now we are moving ahead continuously towards execution, towards the conception of steps, specific steps. So now we are focusing upon competition. We will be talking about this, direct competition, indirect competition, beyond competition and so on, and for other details related to competition which I have discussed at length in my other subjects also, including product and brand management and innovation in marketing and marketing of innovation, which was launched in January this year. So strategic competitiveness. Strategic competitiveness is achieved when a firm has developed and learned how to implement a value creating strategy. Now you see, the point is you are competitive, you are going ahead in terms of satisfying the needs of the customers, and as of now you may start thinking in terms of alternatives and substitutes, the products you are or the services you are providing to the customers, or whichever, for even if you are a non-profit organization, the services you are extending to your beneficiaries, those services with or those products with the context of being a substitute or an alternative. Just visit these words anywhere, Google about those words and try to visualize that if I am a soft drink manufacturer, what substitutes do I have, what alternatives do I have in terms of competition. And when we say strategic competition, that it encompasses all the functional areas, all the business knowledge which an organization has, and that is the objective of this subject at large. Above average returns, the authors further add, and this we have taken from Hitt, Ireland and Hoskisson, Strategic Management, Competitiveness and Globalization, Concepts and Cases by Southwestern, and we are continuously referring to these fundamental textbooks, and these are good textbooks. So above average returns, which means in excess of what investors expect to earn from other investments with similar levels of risk. Why would I invest in this business? For example, you are a manufacturer of X product, why would I invest with you rather than investing somewhere else where would I be finding more kind of returns? So above average returns provide the foundation a firm needs to simultaneously satisfy all of its stakeholders. These three elements along with some other things, take us towards understanding strategic management process, which is defined in these 6 steps at large, wherein 5 steps are in sequence and one is associated with collating with these 5 steps, and we would be going with all these 5 steps in sequence one by one. First we would be focusing upon the first basic 3 steps, developing a strategic vision, mission and core values, which we have talked about, but we will briefly reiterating that very briefly, and then we would be focusing more on setting our objectives, the achievable, attainable objectives, delineating or dividing our mission into achievable objectives. And then we would be focusing upon crafting strategy to achieve the objectives and the company vision. What are the strategic steps to achieve those objectives? So how to define the objectives is an art, and you would realize that in a short while from now. And then what are the strategic steps I should be saying. And then we will be going for subsequently we would be going for understanding, executing the strategy and monitoring developments and evaluating performances and initiating corrective adjustments. And all through it has to be collated with revision as needed in the light of the company's actual performance, changing conditions, new opportunities and new ideas. How to keep upgrading ourselves in terms of augmenting whatever we are going through or whatever we are deciding and so on. Let us see what comes our way. So, the first 3 stages of the strategic management process involve making a strategic plan, and here we discussed that earlier. So, here we are revisiting that concept which we build around strategic planning, and authors again we are referring to Kellett, Thompson, Strickland and Gamble. So, a strategic plan maps out where a company is headed. We are structuring that, establishes strategic and financial targets. We have talked about this, but just to reiterate that, and outlines the competitive moves and approaches to be used in achieving the desired business results. What are our financial targets? What are our sales targets? What kind of profit margins we are looking at? What kind of profitability we should be looking at? What kind of asset utilization we should be looking at? What other several kinds of elements, and the competitive moves which we will be having. Should we be fighting an advertising war? Should we be fighting a distribution war? Should we be going for product augmentation now and then? Should we be going for adding on products into the product line through several kinds of flexible production systems which you should be introducing? That means investing more in operations and management and so on. That is how Maruti Suzuki came up with Nexa and restructured the complete process of their marketing, and that was a large and wonderful exercise which they did, and they came up because of that. So, that is how they created a strategic plan around that. So, let's look into the first step. Vision and mission we have talked about, but just to reiterate that as a first step of strategic management process. Vision is a picture of what the firm wants to be. We know that, we have discussed that in broad terms what it wants to ultimately achieve. So, we have a larger frame of discussion or frame of thought or benchmark we may say. Flowing from the vision, the mission specifies the business. We have just seen that in our last session, or businesses in which the firm intends to compete and the customers it intends to serve. We saw that in case of SBI, Tata Steels and so on, Patanjali. Vision and mission provide direction to the firm and signal important descriptive information to the stakeholders. Why would stakeholders remain associated with you basically? And by this time I am hopeful that you have started looking into the vision and mission and core values of several other organizations, including those of yours if you are working somewhere. Now again, just reiterating the perspective of core values associated with as the first step. So, are the deeply ingrained principles that guide all of a company's actions, that they serve as its cultural cornerstones. And we have talked about this at length, wherein it is the culture which is the fabric for holding the company's beliefs intact, all the people believing in the same values, it becomes part of our culture. Collins and Porras succinctly define core values as being inherent and sacrosanct. They can never be compromised either for convenience or short term economic gains. And we are referring to Lencioni, Make Your Values Mean Something, published in Harvard Business Review. It is an important paper and important discussion. You may refer to the site and you may access that. Now let us go for setting objectives. Now let us devote some time on this kind of a thing. And one thing before I go ahead, you see, if somehow we are thinking in terms of our vision, mission, core values and cultural aspect is there, we can always revisit those as such. If somehow we feel that those are not so clear, those are not becoming so effective in terms of defining our objectives, those are not positively affecting the culture, or culture is not getting synchronized with vision, mission and objectives, and somehow vision and mission, they are not in so sync with the core values of the company. So, we can always revisit that, and when I am saying we revisit that, that is I am referring to business vision and business mission. Setting the objectives, one of the most important exercises which you should individually also do. You see, we often write statements of purpose. We define what my objectives are individually in doctoral researches, in master's projects, at company levels, at non-profit organization levels also, in terms of the number of beneficiaries we would be focusing upon. At government levels, we have policy framework, we have a plan, we have a long-term plan, we have a short-term plan defined through the objectives we would be achieving in terms of in these many days we would be doing this. For example, I was watching some news clipping or a video release wherein a senior official of some ministry was talking about what they have to do specifically in due course of time. I heard someone saying somewhere that they would be constructing these many kilometers of road every day in India, super highways, objectives and goals. What they would be doing subsequent to the construction of those roads. Health Ministry has some specific targets and objectives in terms of spread of health. Every organization does that, government, non-government, business, and business we have to be very crystal clear because it is associated with our profitability, which actually retains our stakeholders and gain more stakeholders and shareholders and customers, whichever way you want to define stakeholders at this moment. That is why I have not used specific word called stockholders. So, setting the objectives. The managerial purpose of setting objectives is to convert the vision and mission into specific performance targets, and here comes the key word. Please remember this: performance. That means measurable targets. This is how we have performed. So, there is a benchmark and this is how we have performed. These should be the profits or this should be the profitability, and that is what we have performed, and so on. Or in terms of brand value for that matter, or in terms of becoming one of the best organizations in Fortune 500 list for that matter, or for example taking a place in great places to work kind of a list basically, or when our brand value is analyzed, this is where we should be in terms of numbers, in terms of money, dollars or euros or rupees, whichever way. So, just go to these websites basically and try Fortune 500 list to understand what they are doing, try great places to work, what they are doing, try just Google the brand value of several kinds of organizations and you would realize that they have brand value in billions of dollars. So, that is where that is expressed. So, performance targets. Objectives are an organization's performance targets, the specific results management wants to achieve, result orientation, because at that end, the time frame which we have decided to achieve those objectives, at that end we would be revisiting that did we do good, were the objectives right, were the objectives appropriate, and if somehow we are short of achieving those objectives or we have overdone that, we have crossed that, that means we should have actually crafted larger objectives as compared to what we did. That means we were not analyzing our potential that way. So, that can also be there. I remember when I was defending my own feasibility on hospitals long back in my master's program, my panel was discussing with me that you are actually defining or working on a feasibility study of a 50-bed hospital, why not 500-bed hospital? And that is where the discussion of potential came in, and objectives are actually related to defining feasibility of what we are going to do, and feasibility is associated with execution as well as possibilities. And when I am talking of feasibility, it is market feasibility, it is human resource related feasibility, it is technological feasibility and financial feasibility most of all, operational feasibility also. So, well stated objectives must be specific, quantifiable and or measurable and challenging and must contain a deadline for achievement. So, time, specific aspects of measurability and challenging, that is where potential comes in. What kind of objectives to set? Two distinct types of performance targets are required, one relating to financial performance and another relating to strategic performance. I talked about feasibility. So, we can think in terms of as far as breaking it into two parts, strategic and financial. Financial objectives relate to financial performance targets management has established for organization to achieve. That is precisely numbers, that this, the cost should not go beyond this, the profits should be like this, the asset value should be like this, and so on. Strategic objectives relate to target outcomes that indicate a company is strengthening its market standing, competitive position and future business prospects. Am I coming back to the point of market feasibility, technological perspective in feasibility, human resource management in feasibility and so on, because competitive position is achieved with the help of the technological advantage and the human resource advantage or the resource advantage which you would develop, and future business prospects is how to define, how to actually convert that advantage into our potential, and strengthening its market standing is all through with the help of our products and services and brand value of those products and services and so on. There are some common financial and strategic objectives. For example, few of the financial objectives which authors define and they suggest is that an X% increase in annual revenues. How do you define that? This year we were X, for example, $100 million or 1000 crores of rupees, and we wish to go for 1200 crores rupees. What are the reasons for defining that? There is a whole lot of an analysis in terms of our potential, in terms of our present performance, in terms of the market potential we may gain, in terms of the development of market wherein we would be contributing, in terms of market demand also, in terms of human resource and other resources which would be capitalizing upon and so on. So, this one simple line, increase in annual revenue and analysis of that actually includes the complete element of our feasibility analysis in terms of the objectives which we would be defining for ourselves for the next year or next quarter or whichever way you want to look at it. Annual dividend increases of X%, how much dividends we would be able to give to our investors. Profit margins of X%. Now, strategic objectives, having broader and deeper technological capabilities than rivals. What kind of technological advantage we would create for ourselves, what kind of retail relationship based advantage we would create for ourselves, what kind of a supplier relationship based advantage we would create for ourselves, what kind of integration based advantage we would create for ourselves in strategic terms, what kind of distribution advantages we would create for ourselves and so on. Our reach, for example, how we would be thinking in terms of as far as our reach goes and where to capitalize upon that reach as such. Having a wider product line than rivals. The point here is that you would have seen that one company may have several kinds of products or several differentiating products in the same category also, different kinds of shampoos, different kinds of soaps, different kinds of soft drinks, hundreds of brand names associated with them in that particular kind of a product category. For the details in terms of product category and other associated details, you may refer to again product and brand management at the same portal. Having a wider product line than rivals, winning an X% of market share. This is how market is and this is how we would be growing in terms of as far as the whole structure goes. Now, there are some terms which we have used. So, we thought that it is better that we should be briefly mentioning those terms in the form of definitions. So, for example, I mentioned this word dividend. So, it is a part of the profit of a company that is paid to the people who own shares in it. Revenue, the income that a business or a government receives regularly or an amount representing such income. This is just to support the thought process which we are trying to build up. Product line, a range of similar products or services that are sold by the same company with different features and different prices. A car, for example, a product line in terms of cars which a company is producing, Maruti Suzuki is producing and so on. Now, let us go for crafting strategy to achieve the objectives and the company vision. But before that, as I said, we must revise and revisit our objectives in terms of the performance, the measurement criteria we have chosen. Here one very important thing which I would be actually deciphering in due course of time, but here one very important thing which we have to talk about is that we have to have a proper measurement criteria as well. When I say proper measurement criteria, that means we have to define our scales which are best, which are at the highest of the standards, which are precise, which are developed in due course of time. You see, scale development is also a very important thing. Many times industry front runners or leaders of the industry, they develop their own benchmarks and scales for performance. You see, for example, operational efficiency. Now, operational efficiency can be thought of in terms of scale of time, in terms of finish of the products, in terms of the excellence in terms of the products. For example, one car manufacturer who is serving the niche market, high end cars, they may not think in terms of number of cars to be produced, but they may think in terms of the precision and the machine and the beauty of the machine and the excellence of the machine and the speed of the machine and so on. That is engineering. That is their base. And on the other side, large number of cars which are being produced by a manufacturer for the mass market, the time and the number of cars and the distribution of those cars and the running of those cars on the road can be a benchmark in terms of scales. So, scales have to be defined, and that is where we have to revisit the objectives in terms of the scales, and many times scales in terms of the objectives as such, as far as the whole situation goes. And here again I would reiterate, new opportunities and new ideas which authors say are important, wherein we have to revise and revisit our objectives in the light of the changing conditions, new opportunities and new ideas. That is, a niche market manufacturer or a brand may always think in terms of going for a larger market, and a larger market based organization can create a product line which is focused on niche market as such. And that is why probably Toyota, they started producing Lexus, and Mercedes, they came up with a larger customer base based version of their cars and so on. So, crafting a strategy. Now, the task of crafting a strategy entails addressing a series of hows. Here comes the execution point. How to attract and please customers. What kind of a message you would do, that is advertising and positioning. What kind of a retail touch point you would create. How would you reach to the customers in any form, through Salesforce, through advertising, through your retail network and so on. Patanjali reached to its customers by associating them as their beneficiaries and then opening a large retail network and coupling that with large production. And the leaders of that organization, they became the brand ambassadors themselves, especially Baba Ramdev ji. How to compete against rivals. What are the competitive points? How to convince the retail chain more as compared to others towards ourselves? How to make them sell our products and just our products, for example, not a multi-product retailing and so on. Why would they be remaining associated with us? Why customers would specifically go to the shop and ask for our product only? So, how to compete against rivals? How to differentiate our products even if it is not indifferentiable. For example, why people go to the medical store and they say that give me a Crocin, you know what I am speaking of. How to position the company in the marketplace. What does the name of Tata as a company, as an organization, regardless of the product, comes to your mind. How to respond to changing market conditions. Marketing conditions are changing, some technologically oriented company is coming. For example, if somehow Walmart is coming, how would Amazon respond to that, even if they are in two different kinds of spheres basically, but then Walmart came and acquired Flipkart, and then Flipkart, how would Flipkart respond to Amazon and so on, just an example. And Coca-Cola and Pepsi, they always respond to each other. So, how to capitalize on attractive opportunities to grow the business if market is growing, if things are working well, if economy is rising, some house, some builder, developer, these organizations, how would they respond to that? How would they respond to that in comparison to their organizations? And you see, I am just referring to visible examples here, and there are several examples which can be into this kind of a frame. Visible examples because they touch our lives more as compared to many other examples and so on. How to achieve strategic and financial objectives. Entrepreneurship is called for in choosing among the various strategic alternatives and in proactively searching for opportunities to do new things or to do existing things in new or better way. And that is where crafting a strategy is also associated with developing a perspective of or developing an art of entrepreneurship within yourself. So, managers, they have to act as entrepreneurs, business leaders, they definitely are entrepreneurs. So, they act entrepreneurially when they craft strategies. And you see, entrepreneurship is not just about profitability. entrepreneurial thinking process can be implemented in institutions like IIT as well, wherein we have to think entrepreneurially in terms of getting best projects, best consulting projects, and so on, and developing our brand positioning as compared to other IITs and many international universities, and filing for rankings and so on, so that best of the students, they tend to choose us, and because students are products, so they go and contribute in best of the companies who would actually take them along with that. Here there is no buyer seller relationship, but still you have to think in terms of achieving the best. Strategies come from doing things differently from competitors, product differentiation, work differentiation, process differentiation, where it counts out, innovating them, being more efficient, being more imaginative, adapting faster rather than running with the herd. Good strategy making is therefore inseparable from good business entrepreneurship. One cannot exist without the other. You see, the ultimate fact is that we have to craft strategies in coherence with the values, vision, mission, objectives, and we have to define specific goals in relation to as far as the whole scenario goes, and we have to revisit our crafted strategies whenever, however it is required. And this is where I would end my discussion in this session, that when we are talking about strategic management process, there is a hierarchy in terms of making strategies, because when we talk of process, vision, it is associated with corporate strategy level basically. We will be talking about all these stages of strategy making in due course of time, and I would be emphasizing on each one of them with different kinds of relevance associated with them, but they are coherent with each other and they are coherent with the strategic management process as well. I would be starting my discussion from the same figure in the next session, but till then I want you to analyze that you see vision, mission and the related exercises are related to corporate strategy level. Business strategy level is related to setting up objectives and crafting the strategy, and functional area strategies collate the business level strategic development, and operating strategies are again collating everything which is to be executed at the ground level. So, in case of single business company, these two levels of strategy making hierarchy merge into one level, as the authors say, and business strategy that is orchestrated by the company's CEO and other top executives and so on. So, you see, somewhere top executives are involved, somewhere functional heads are involved, somewhere execution team is involved. I will be catching up back with you with more insights on the execution of strategy, and then monitoring the developments and evaluating what we have done, and then revisiting the complete picture in my next session. Till then, goodbye.